Emotional numbness is the kind of prison that doesn't look like one. From the outside, these people seem composed, rational, even admirable. They don't overreact. They don't lose control. They're the calmest person in every room, but behind that calm is emptiness. They live behind what psychologists call emotional dissociation, a psychological wall built not to protect their peace, but to protect them from pain that once felt unbearable. It's a wall made of glass, transparent enough for them to see the world, but strong enough to keep them from truly feeling it. This detachment often begins in childhood. When a child grows up in an environment where emotions are unsafe, where anger leads to punishment, tears lead to ridicule, or vulnerability leads to rejection, the mind adapts. It learns that feeling deeply is dangerous. The child's brain begins to associate emotion with pain, so it starts turning the volume down on all feelings. That mechanism works beautifully for survival. You can't get hurt if you don't feel. But what starts as protection becomes a lifelong barrier. The body grows up, but the defense stays. In adulthood, this manifests as a quiet emptiness. These individuals go through the motions of life but feel like observers rather than participants. They may have jobs, relationships, even families, but every interaction feels like it's happening behind glass. When someone laughs with them, they mimic the response, but it doesn't reach their chest. When someone says, "I love you," they might smile and say it back, but the words land somewhere shallow, never sinking in. The numbness becomes a habit of existing without truly experiencing. People often mistake this emotional stillness for strength. Friends say things like, "You're so calm under pressure," or "Nothing ever gets to you." But what they don't see is that inside, nothing gets through to them either. The numb person doesn't feel intense sadness or fear, but they also don't feel deep joy or excitement. Life becomes flat, like a film that's lost its color. They stop seeking pleasure, not because they don't want it, but because they can't connect with it anymore. This emotional disconnection is not just psychological, it's biological. When the body endures prolonged emotional suppression, it shifts into a chronic state of survival. The nervous system learns to stay neutral, avoiding highs and lows alike. Cortisol, the stress hormone, remains slightly elevated, keeping the person in a low-level fight or flight mode. Over time, this can lead to fatigue, digestive issues, and even chronic pain. The body becomes as numb as the emotions. It's a full system adaptation to avoid feeling. In relationships, this detachment creates confusion. The emotionally numb person often comes across as distant or uninterested. Their partner might say, "Yeah, you never open up," or "I can't tell what you're feeling." And the truth is, they can't tell either. They don't know how to identify what's happening inside them. When confronted with conflict instead of anger or sadness, they feel blank. Their instinct is to withdraw, not to avoid others, but to avoid the unbearable discomfort of emotion itself. This doesn't mean they don't crave connection. Deep down, they want love like everyone else, but love requires vulnerability, and vulnerability threatens the wall that's kept them safe for so long. So they stay behind it, choosing security over connection. They long to feel warmth, but are terrified of the burn. It's a paradox that keeps them trapped. The more they avoid pain, the more isolated they become. To outsiders, their lives can look stable. They rarely have emotional outbursts. They handle crises maturely. But this stability comes at a heavy price. They live half alive, unable to access the full range of what it means to be human. They don't realize that numbness is not the absence of pain. It's pain frozen in place. Every unexpressed emotion, every swallowed word, still exists inside them, waiting to be acknowledged. The tragedy of emotional numbness is that it hides itself well. It whispers, "You're fine, you're just strong, you don't need anyone." But this false peace erodes slowly. Over time, the body and mind begin to rebel. Anxiety creeps in, not from feeling too much, but from feeling nothing at all. Depression often follows, not the kind that comes from sadness, but from disconnection. It's not despair, it's emptiness. Healing begins when the numb person realizes that detachment is not strength, it's a wound. The process of recovery isn't about forcing emotions back, but gently teaching the body that it's safe to feel again. It starts small. A therapist might ask them to notice sensations in their body, the weight of their feet, the rise of their breath, the tightness in their chest. These sensations become the first bridge between the mind and emotion. Slowly, they relearn what it means to inhabit their own body, to trust their feelings as information rather than threats. It's not an easy path. After years of disconnection, the first feelings to return are often painful ones: grief, anger, regret. But these are not signs of breaking down, they're signs of waking up. It's like thawing after years of frostbite. Pain comes first, then warmth, then life. And only after that does joy return, not the surface level kind, but the deep, steady warmth that comes from truly feeling again. The real freedom is not in numbing pain, it's in facing it without fear. Because when you stop numbing, you don't just regain sadness, you regain laughter, passion, and love. You rediscover the full spectrum of being human. If this truth resonated with you, take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to The Fictionist, where we dive deep into the hidden psychology of the human mind and uncover the quiet truths that shape who we really are. To the outside world, the emotionally numb person looks calm, grounded, even admirable. They never lose their temper, never cry, never appear shaken. People around them might call them strong or stoic. But this calm is not peace, it's control. It's a mask built from fear. The person isn't unfeeling, they're terrified of feeling too much. Deep down, they believe that if they ever let one emotion escape, it will open the floodgates to everything they've been holding back for years. So they build a dam inside themselves and call it composure. This illusion of calm gives them power, or at least it feels that way. It lets them stay above the chaos of life. While others break down, they stay steady. While others cry or rage, they remain detached. But that control comes at a heavy cost. It takes constant energy to hold back the human impulse to express emotion. It's like holding your breath and pretending you don't need air. You can only keep it up for so long before the body starts to rebel. Imagine a person who grew up in a house where emotions were dangerous. Maybe when they cried, they were told to stop being dramatic. When they got angry, they were punished. Over time, they learned that showing emotion meant pain, rejection, or shame. So they adapted, they learned to stay quiet, to keep their face neutral, to bury every emotional reaction before it reached the surface. As an adult, this habit feels safe. They believe that staying calm protects them from being hurt again. The problem is that this calm is not real stability, it's emotional paralysis. The person is frozen in a state of self-control. They confuse numbness with strength because they've never experienced healthy emotional release. They don't understand that emotions are meant to move through the body like weather. Sadness should come and go. Anger should rise and fade. Joy should expand and soften. When these feelings are blocked, they don't disappear, they just turn inward. Internally, the emotionally numb person is tired. Their body feels tense, their chest feels heavy, and their thoughts feel distant. They might describe themselves as fine, but can't remember the last time they felt real excitement or deep connection. They avoid conflict because it threatens their sense of control. They avoid vulnerability because it feels unsafe. The result is isolation. They're surrounded by people, but feel alone in every room. This illusion of calm is also deceptive to others. Friends and partners often assume they don't care or that nothing affects them. In truth, they care deeply but have no safe way to show it. Their calm exterior becomes a barrier that keeps others out. Over time, relationships suffer because intimacy requires openness, and openness requires emotion. Without it, every conversation stays shallow, every connection incomplete. You can see this dynamic in small, everyday moments. A partner tries to talk about something painful, but the numb person responds with logic instead of empathy. A friend shares a personal struggle, but they reply with advice instead of compassion. It is not that they don't understand, it is that feeling alongside someone else would mean touching their own buried emotions. And that's what they've spent a lifetime avoiding. The irony is that this emotional self-control often comes from a good place. These people aren't trying to be cold, they're trying to survive. They associate emotions with chaos, so they create order by cutting them off. But the mind doesn't heal through avoidance. The energy spent suppressing emotions is the same energy that could be used to live fully, to laugh freely, to love deeply, to cry honestly. In therapy, when people like this finally allow themselves to feel, they often describe it as terrifying but freeing. The tears come uncontrollably, the body trembles and old memories surface. But once it's out, they realize the emotions never had the power to destroy them. The danger was never the feeling, it was the fear of it. So the illusion of control through calm is just that, an illusion. It's a survival mechanism that once kept them safe but now keeps them small. The calm face they show the world hides a storm that has been waiting for years to be acknowledged. They think control protects them, but it's actually the reason they can't connect. Because real connection only happens when we allow ourselves to be seen as we truly are, messy, emotional, and human. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being beside someone who looks at you, talks to you, even touches you, but never really lets you in. This is the chasm of false intimacy. It is the quiet space between two people who appear close from the outside but remain emotionally miles apart. One person keeps giving more, trying to reach the other, while the emotionally numb partner stands at the edge of that distance, unable to cross. They might care deeply, but caring is not the same as connecting. False intimacy often hides behind the appearance of closeness. A couple can live together, share meals, make love, and still never truly know each other. The emotionally detached person can perform all the gestures of affection, sending texts, showing up, saying, "I love you." But what's missing is presence. They're there physically, but not emotionally. You can feel it in small moments when you share something vulnerable, and their response feels flat or distant. When they change the subject after you open up. When you sense that behind their calm there's a wall you're not allowed to enter. It's not cruelty, it's protection. They've learned to guard their inner world so tightly that even love feels like a risk. For them, vulnerability equals danger. Maybe they grew up in a home where emotions were dismissed or punished. Maybe every time they showed sadness or need, someone made them feel weak or ashamed. Over time, their mind learned to survive by sealing those feelings away. They built an emotional firewall not to hurt others, but to stay safe. The problem is, that same wall that keeps pain out also keeps love from getting in. Imagine trying to hug someone through glass. You can see them, you can press your hands against the surface, but no matter how much you try, you can't feel their warmth. That's what emotional intimacy feels like when one person is detached. They might say all the right words, but the energy doesn't reach you. It's not that they don't care, it is that they've forgotten how to feel. Their nervous system is trained to stay neutral, to avoid the unpredictable waves of emotion, so even in moments of affection they pull back without realizing it. For the person on the other side, it's confusing and painful. They sense something missing but can't name it. They start to question themselves. Am I asking for too much? Am I the problem? They may even mistake the numb partner's detachment for emotional maturity, telling themselves, at least they're not dramatic. But over time, the lack of emotional depth becomes unbearable. Conversations feel mechanical. Shared experiences feel hollow. It's like trying to build a home on a frozen lake. Everything looks solid until it cracks beneath you. In friendships, this false intimacy looks similar. The emotionally detached person might be the listener, the one who helps everyone else but never opens up themselves. They know how to show care in actions but not through emotional transparency. They're the friend who's always there but never shares their struggles. To others, they seem strong, reliable, maybe even admirable. But the truth is, they're starving for connection while pretending they don't need it. They avoid revealing too much, afraid that once someone sees their real emotions, they'll be judged or abandoned. This constant distance creates a cycle. The more others reach for closeness, the more the numb person withdraws. When someone confronts them about their detachment, they might say, "I'm fine, I just don't express emotions like you do." They're not lying. They genuinely believe that's true. But what they call calmness is actually suppression. Their emotional range has been narrowed so long that they can't tell what they feel anymore. Inside, there's a muted ache, but it's easier to stay numb than to risk feeling it all at once. The tragedy of false intimacy is that it gives the illusion of connection without the comfort of it. Both people end up lonely, the detached one because they can't let themselves be known, and the other because they're trying to love someone who keeps vanishing behind invisible walls. It's like dancing with a shadow. You move in rhythm, but the touch never lands. The first step toward breaking that cycle is awareness. The numb person must recognize that their distance isn't just a personality trait, it's a survival mechanism that no longer serves them. Healing starts when they allow themselves to feel the small things again: discomfort, irritation, sadness, without shutting down. Those tiny cracks in the wall are where real intimacy begins, because connection doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from letting another person see the parts of you that aren't perfect or controlled. And for those on the other side of that wall, the partners, friends, and loved ones, it's important to understand that the numb person isn't withholding out of cruelty. They're protecting themselves from ghosts of old pain. You can't force the wall down, but you can help them feel safe enough to lower it, one piece at a time. If this resonated with you, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to The Fictionist, where we explore the unseen battles of the human mind and the quiet psychology behind why we love, fear, and disconnect the way we do. The deepest irony of emotional numbness is that what the person wants most, real connection, is locked behind the very defense they built to survive. They want closeness, but fear what comes with it. They crave love, but run from the risk of being seen. Vulnerability to them feels like standing in front of a firing squad without armor. Every instinct says, "Don't do it, you'll get hurt again." Yet that's the only doorway through which true connection can exist. It's the ultimate paradox. The cage is made of the same metal as the key. Healing from numbness doesn't mean forcing yourself to cry or overshare. It begins with allowing the smallest cracks of emotion to come through. Maybe it's noticing the tightness in your chest when someone compliments you instead of brushing it off. Maybe it's admitting that hurt instead of pretending you're fine. These moments feel small, but they're how you start to thaw. Emotional thawing is slow. It's like ice melting in sunlight. You don't feel the change right away, but the edges start to soften. For many, the hardest part is learning to trust the body again. When you've spent years cutting off emotions to stay safe, your own feelings start to feel like enemies. You've trained yourself to view them as threats, something to manage, suppress, or avoid. But feelings are signals, not weapons. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. That lump in your throat, the knot in your stomach, the sudden rush of warmth when someone looks at you with kindness, those are messages. They're reminders that you're still alive beneath the armor. Letting yourself feel doesn't mean losing control. It means making space for the truth of your experience. Think of vulnerability as strength training for the soul. You don't start by lifting heavy weights. You start with the small ones. sharing a fear with a friend, admitting you're lonely, allowing yourself to cry at a movie instead of swallowing the tears. Each act rewires your brain to see emotions not as threats, but as bridges to yourself and to others. Real connection is built in those small, unguarded exchanges. When two people share their truths without trying to fix or hide them, something real forms between them. It's not dramatic, it's quiet, grounding. A look that says, "I get it." A silence that feels safe instead of awkward. That's the language of vulnerability, and it's how intimacy breathes. The numb person doesn't need to tear down their wall overnight. They just need to let a little light in. Many people who live behind emotional walls believe that being vulnerable will make them weak or dependent. But the truth is, it takes far more courage to stay open than it does to stay numb. Avoidance is easy. Honesty is hard. It's standing in the open with your heart visible and saying, "This is me," even when you don't know how it will be received. That's the act that transforms relationships. Because when one person dares to be real, it gives permission for the other to do the same. Vulnerability is contagious. It spreads safety. There's a kind of freedom that comes from no longer needing to hide. When you stop performing the version of yourself that's always calm, always fine, always in control, you start to experience the raw, unfiltered texture of life again. Joy feels brighter, sadness feels bearable, love feels like something you can finally trust, not something that might destroy you. The numbness fades not because you've escaped pain, but because you've learned you can survive it. The emotionally detached person doesn't need to fix themselves. They need to remember how to feel themselves. Connection doesn't begin when you find the perfect person. It begins the moment you stop hiding from who you are. The wall doesn't vanish all at once. It crumbles in moments of honesty, compassion, and courage. Each time you let someone see a little more of you, you come closer to the connection you've been chasing all along. And maybe that's the real secret. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the path back to being human. It's what turns isolation into belonging, numbness into aliveness, and pain into understanding. So if you've been living behind that glass wall, this is your sign to take one small step toward openness today. Because every heartbeat, every tear, every truth you let through, it's all proof that you're still capable of love. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to The Fictionist, where we dive deep into the quiet corners of the human mind and uncover the stories that shape who we are and how we connect.